Hello, Lorcana YouTube community. I have a very awesome deck profile player interview today. A returning guest on the channel. You guys know him, you love him. I have one of the, if not best, Sapphire Steel players in the world, Jonathan LamChopss. Welcome. Thank you for coming and being back on the channel, and congrats on your amazing fourth place finish at this past Disney Lorcana challenge, in which you traveled all the way to Melbourne, Australia. Thank you for coming on the channel, and how are you doing today?
Really good. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome. I was super happy to see you, like your success over there, and I didn't even know like you were over there in Australia until a little bit after midway through the tournament. Before we get into your run, what made you want to travel all the way over there?
Hmm. Yeah, I was in incognito mode. Um, I kind of wanted to go to Australia for a long time because after Continentals, I wanted one more chance to get my Worlds invite. Yeah, I changed my name to Captain Kangaroo for just this tournament because it was an inside joke. I was just like, oh, I asked my locals like I should just change my name for this one event, and I asked them like they took a poll and they said like there's a there's like an really old kids show or something called LamChopss, and it used to run on this TV network called Captain Kangaroo. It was like perfect for Australia, so that's probably why some people weren't able to follow my run.
Yeah, and that's really smart, and also awesome story behind that behind that name. But yeah, when I found out you were over there, I was like, wow, like this guy's actually, he's so confident in his skills and his ability to play the game, especially like with the Sapphire and Steel list that the viewers can currently see right now. You went all the way over there, and you wanted that last chance to get your World's invite. Unfortunately, you did lose in the semifinals, which we'll get into later. But again, congrats to you for even like just attempting to go out there. You won a golden Mickey as well. You won all the prizing, and you got to show the world that Sapphire and Steel, before the format ended, is still very strong.
Yeah, I think it was a great meta pick into the tournament. Also, I guess like since Australia hasn't had Lorcana that much, I guess they haven't had too much practice against Blue Steel because it's not one of the main meta decks.
And speaking of Blue Steel, like how you said, it's not one of the main meta decks, which is a really good reason why to run it. You opted out to use a very unique wheel list. It's not something that you see some cards in the deck, and really a lot of New World lists. Before we get into the deck list in particular, why also did you want to run this list with Pleakley and New World? Because our conversation that me and you had at Continentals, you were saying, after the tournament that you were gonna maybe shift into playing Ruby Sapphire. What made you stick with Blue Steel, and then in particular this list?
I think during Continentals, I was a little uh, frustrated. I guess I learned a lot during that event about how it's important to bring the right deck for the meta or the format specifically. And bringing decks that have like even matchup spreads is a little bit. It makes it very difficult to get those 2-0s that you need in a really high level playing field. I was mostly just joking about playing Ruby Sapphire. I don't think I'll go over to the dark side anytime soon. But yeah, I stick with Blue Steel because I like it and I'm confident in my play.
So after the success that you had getting that fourth place finish, you actually released a guide on your Metafy, and it's I can see here on the page. I'm gonna go ahead and share it with the viewers. I see here the Cottage. I see different tiers that people can subscribe to, and again, it is a guide for the deck. What can you tell me about the Cottage and what people can expect to find on here?
So it's a continuation of the merlinscottage.com website that I made after my win in Vegas, and I the Metafy team has been quite persistent in trying to get me to move over there, so I thought I would give it a try. And it seems like a lot of the top players are starting to put their sights on there. I was like, I've procrastinated about moving there for so long now. I thought it would be a good time to do that and release a set six guide.
Mhm.
So I have, in addition to the Blue Steel Bible that I wrote for set five, if you had purchased that on Merlin's Cottage, you can get that for free on Metafy. I sent an email out to everyone with like a code that lets you redeem that for free. And then I created over the past like week or so, um, the set six guide for Azure ITs is called the ship log,
Mhm.
and it's just talks about all of the different deck building theories that I used and it goes into super great detail about exactly why I built the deck the way it is, and um, specifically how to punish the meta in creative ideas with creative ideas. So yeah, Merlin's Cottage, the cottage on the Metafy, you can subscribe at different tiers. It's completely optional. You can always just get the guide by itself. But if you would like to support me, that's one way you can do it. And also, there's different tiers. There's like a tomato soup tier. That's just for
Hmm.
general support. And there's a burger tier that gets you access to the Blue Steel Bible if you haven't bought it yet, while you're subscribed. And then also, um, I will be writing battle logs for all of the tournaments that I've been to, um, containing like short summaries of which matchups I played against and any specific notes that I learned from those games, and I'll be posting them to anyone that's in the burger tier can see that. And then for the highest tier, the LamChopss tier, you can get access to my personal testing journals that I write by hand. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
So you pretty much just get to dive into the world of LamChopss, and people get to see the way you view the deck, the way you talk about the deck, the guides that you're gonna have on how to run the deck, right? Because this deck is very skilled to play. I purchased your past guide, so I do recommend for anyone who wants to get into the deck or just in Sapphire and Steel in general, because you are a multiple DLC topper. You just came back from a 10K event that you did really well in. So I'm gonna have all that information in the description. Go ahead and check it out. I do recommend it because again, this level of quality in your guides and just everything that I see here on the page is just super awesome. So I think it's finally time to get onto the deck list because Lam, so many people were just going crazy, and when they saw your list, the first thing that you're gonna see is Pleakley. You're gonna see cards like Pryos in there. So just to start off with the deck list, I see that you're playing four Simba One Drops. Can you go ahead into detail a little bit on why you decided to run a card like Simba, where we're in a fast format, where personally me, I'm running Captain Hook.
Yeah, so Simba, I think he's great. He is one of the one drops that you can feel okay about seeing into the late game because he has a pretty valuable effect of like filtering the top card of your deck. It lets you get closer to those wheels or get closer to those key pieces that you really need to find. So that's the main reason why I chose him over the other one drops is just because he doesn't feel so bad drawing him in the late game. If you are top decking and you draw him, he can't really do the effect anymore because you need to have another card in hand. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are top decking, it might be valuable to keep a single card in hand, but that's just to enable Simba's ability in the late game. But his primary purpose is to play him on turn one. He checks a lot of the X ones in the format, so Merfolks, Diablos, Chernobog's, and he also provides the one extra attack that you need with Mr. Smee in order to take out Daisy. So if your opponent opens Daisy on one and you have a Simba and a Smee on board, then they can't even quest anymore. And so that's really valuable. So, and the final reason to run him is running Pleakley.
Of
So if
course.
you're able to play him on one, you can get like one or two lore, or you can challenge a few times, or you can even stand him upright to guarantee that you can get the Pleakley in. But when you get that Pleakley down, it basically turns him into a 3/4, and then he becomes an Ink. So that's extremely valuable in this aggressive meta. It lets you turn the corner by getting a few lore early, and also by having that big body on turn three, it lets you start taking super valuable trades and slow down your opponent's questing, which also allows you to quest and gain some lore to turn the clock quicker.
I do like that you said like it can filter dead cards in your hand. So a card like New World where you might not need it in a certain matchup or Lucky Dime, and then of course being able to feed the Pleakley so Pleakley can come out on the board makes sense. But what's interesting is you're not opting to run the Shift Simba. Like you are playing New World. Why did you not decide to run the Shift combo package in this list, especially it being a New World list?
Yeah, so I talk about it a little bit more into detail in my guide, but for a short summary, it's pretty much just most of the time that you're shifting, um, if you shift and fast wheel like Amber Steel does, you won't have an your full ink ball to your advantage when you do draw your 7 new cards. So you won't be able to use that those 7 cards to its fullest extent on the turn that you sing the wheel, which is a little bit dangerous because if your opponents are able to clear your singer, your shifted singer, then you suddenly don't have a very great board anymore. So that's the biggest reason I think it's okay to play the big Simba and the small Simba as they're both um, individually decent cards. But if you're playing towards the shift line, I think that's I would caution against that, especially just like if you think about your situation, like if you go like Simba, Smee, Quill into big Simba shift on four and then Sing Wheel, you only have three ink or two ink left,
True.
and you won't be able to get another singer in case they do remove yours. So that's a big tempo loss. You're basically losing two bodies, and you don't have enough ink to set up your board for the next turn.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Pretty much in short summary, like you said, it's just gonna disrupt your game plan, and it could cause just awkward mulligans and awkward new worlds. But the fact that you're able just to make Simba by itself work in the deck, it's super awesome to see because that's super spicy. Following the Simba, you're playing the one of Tipo. I'm assuming this is just to guarantee a little bit on more on that either turn two, turn three ramp aspect.
So yeah, the TPO is a big consistency factor for finding ramp, and I've always preferred to have 8 ramp in most of my lists. So 4 quills and then 4 of an alternative turn 3 ramp. Either Mickey, it's usually Mickey. Um, but the biggest reason to run Tipo is sometimes since Pleakley is kind of a conditional ramp, you don't really want to play him if you don't have the Simba, or you don't. It doesn't feel that great to eat a Smee and turn him into the ink, but so the Pleakley, if he eats the Tipo, that's also really good. So you can count Tipo as a fifth Simba
Mm-hmm.
for the Pleakley to eat. Or if you miss the Pleakley, then you can play on three, and it'll count as like a fourth turn three ramp. So it's added consistency for finding the a small guy that you would like to eat with Pleakley, and it's also added consistency in your turn three ramp. So I think that's great. It also adds some flexibility to your lines. If you're playing against some discard matchups, it's fine to go Popsicle Tipo Flag. That can be really strong too.
Yeah, for the Hiram. Okay, that makes sense. I do really like Tipo in this list. Followed by Tipo, you're playing two Argus, where honestly, I haven't seen this card since, Lassic to counter the red purple. It's just because, again, for red purple and Daisy, really interesting for you to run two copies. And I'm assuming to where, like, if you play him on board and your opponent just doesn't quest that turn, you can just turn that Argus into like a Pleakley. Did Argus come up a lot?
Um, so the thought behind Argus is, um, when I mean Red Purple is already one of our best matchups, and I really want to be guaranteeing that 2-0 against them every time I play them. So he gives us a lot of leverage against Flynn on the draw. Um, he basically turns off the Flynn forever. So that's really nice for Red Purple. And against Amber Steel, mine's like Diggy Hole decks. If they open Daisy on one, they the Argus checks them, so
Mm-hmm.
they can't quest, and also they won't really have a singer like Cinderella on board in order to punish the Argus. If they hardcast Storm, I think that's fine as well. So he's kind of decent into most matchups, but he's really good into the red ones. And um, the biggest thing is that he's inkable. I would love to run Calhoun if I could, but I don't want to go with too many uninkables and risk breaking.
Yeah. That makes sense. I do like that in this list in particular. The Argus just fits really well. I personally wasn't on him, but I do see still how strong he is. And again, shutting off that Flynn is just so strong because you don't have to worry about losing three lore every turn. So I'm glad it definitely worked out for you, and it's really cool just to see how already like with the first three cards in this list, just how different it is from what you see in standard wheels list. But then we get to a card that you do see everywhere, Mr. Smee. Such a strong two-drop card, and then we move on to Peakley. Uh, I know how much you love this card. I know we talked about it a lot, but in this for this question, just why do you prefer Peakley over Sail?
So I think Sale I think everyone was really high on Sale going to the set. Everyone thought it was like going to be one of the best ramp cards, but in Blue Steel, I found it kind of underwhelming. Um, because most of the time, in order to get the extra bonus of like that ink being ready on
Mm-hmm.
the turn that you play it, you have to have like either like two two drops in your hand in your starting hand with Sale, which is honestly, it doesn't happen too often, or you have to have like a popsicle or the fire the cannons. So it just is not very consistent in getting instant value. And also it doesn't really affect the board at all. So that's the biggest thing is like it doesn't put a body on the board, which I think is super important in this meta where decks are going really, really fast.
And did you ever? How many times did Pleakley? Did you miss with Pleakley? Is it like to where it just never really happens, or is your deck really that consistent to where you're just always being able to Pleakley?
So in terms of Pleakling the Simba, it doesn't happen all the time, but you also have like alternative game plans with like going Smee equivalent to Tink.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's a rough estimate, but maybe like four to maybe like 40 to 60% of the time you can get the Simba into Pleakley line, and that's just a huge, huge tempo swing.
Interesting, and I'm glad that like a player like you again is able to make a card where everyone didn't think it was good, and you've had this success with it. So hopefully you continue having that success with that card because I definitely
Yeah.
do think that Peakley is such an interesting ramp tool, and you were able to just show everyone how strong it is. Followed by that, you're playing 4P, which is pretty standard.
Mhm,
I'm assuming just to counter everything Amber Steel and Be Prepared. Did you ever
mhm.
test less than 4P, or 4P is just mandatory? Do you think?
I think I thought about going down to three at one time during the set when like green purple is pretty dominant. Because they don't really run any actions. But I don't think for any big tournaments I ran three,
Mm-hmm.
just because he's just way too good. And with like Maui Shark in the meta,
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the best counters to Maui Shark is by playing P after they play Maui Shark and it just turns their Maui Shark into a vanilla card pretty much. So I think he's really good.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely in a Pete meta. Followed by Pete, you have four Hiram, very standard, the best card in the deck. Three Cogsworth, again for Wheel Liz, this is very good just because he is a singer that has ward and gets you that +1 resist. And then before we get into the spicy cards, we're playing two Aerial, again very standard, being able to counter Ruby decks, getting that Lord with Lucky Dime. Four Tinkerbell, Tinkerbell just a card that's not going anywhere. But really, now we get to the last spicy cards. You're playing Pyros and Arthur. Uh,
Mm,
Pyros, Pyros being able to ready when he challenge something in a battle, and then Arthur being able to when you play him, you get to attack a ready character. Were you playing the Arthur as a Pyros combo, or did you just like the Arthur in general? And then
yeah.
how much did this Pyros come up for you outside of the combo with Arthur come up this weekend,
Mhm.
that weekend?
So yeah, so Pyrus Arthur is pretty interesting. So Pyrus, when you banish a character, when he challenges and banishes a character, you can ready one of your own characters. So you can either ready your own Pyrus for him to attack again, or you can ready high lore quester to have him quest twice. So he has a lot of versatility, and I think again in this meta where the mid range decks are really focused on controlling the aggressive decks,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think he provides a lot of like pressure on the opponents. Like if they, especially if they have whiteboards, like they don't really necessarily want to be questing into a pyro style, just like 10 for one them. With Cogsworth, he can survive a lot of trades, and with Arthur, obviously he can challenge all characters, even the ready ones. So he'll just board wipe them. And I think the big importance is that having removal that is body based
Mm-hmm.
or like character based is really important because in this aggressive meta, if you're spending a lot of your ink just removing your opponent's cards, you don't really like speed up your own clock or accelerate your own lore gain that much. So it will take a long time for you to close up a game. That's something I learned during the CCS 10K and the 2K the next day. Is you can answer your opponent's board every single turn of the game, but if you don't have enough questers or if you don't have enough bodies on board, you won't be able to close the game in a timely fashion. That and if you're too slow in closing out the game, it'll give your opponent a lot of chances to
Mm-hmm.
crawl back or like limp across the finish line. And that I wanted to talk about the Simba a little bit more. Is that was a super important addition because the having the small bodies in the blue steel actually allows you to play them while removing your opponent's characters because it's
Just
just
quest.
an efficient ink to lore ratio, and then also just getting those bodies down for super cheap. And while you want to do like spend most of your ink on like removal or like singers, like it really accelerates your clock by a lot. Just that one lore each turn makes a big deal.
Yeah, I think that combo is super interesting, and this just goes to show that again why this list why why this list in general is just so crazy again because you're playing cards like Simba, playing cards like Arges, you're playing Pleakley, you're playing this Pyros combo, and obviously it worked out for you. This whole core of the first part of the deck is just so different from everything that you've seen, and I can see that you favored fighting the board more
Yeah.
compared to other lists.
hmm So I guess I forgot to answer the question about the combo. I actually never really got the combo off. I think I maybe got it once off in Melbourne. But the Arthur's just good standalone, and I think the Pyros is good standalone. So if you just get the combo, it's a little bit of a bonus. I just treat Arthur as like a removal character, like a removal spell that costs 7. Basically you just play it and then something dies on the opponent's board. So like I just treat it as a flexible removal option that also lures for 3.
Yeah, and it combos really well with Tinkerbell. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you ran it. It's such a strong card. I recommend everyone to run at least one copy of Arthur in their list. And to finish off the characters, we have two Tamatoa. Why did you opt to drop in Tamatoa counts if that card is just really strong into Ruby decks?
So I feel confident into the Ruby matchups, especially because Red Blue's running less quills now. So it allows us to kind of play the similar game plan against Ruby Sapphire like we do in Ruby against Ruby Amethyst. Just really just getting a Smee down
Mm-hmm.
and going Quill into Singer into Wheel and just spamming Pete's and going wide. Or if they do get the chance to wipe our board, then we can close it out with aerials and dimes. And I noticed that a lot of red blues are running like less than 2 hideaways. It's either 1 or 0 now. So if they rely on like using Maui Shark to be able to grab it back in the mid game, if we wheel it away or if they discard it or if they ink it, then we can just not turn anything sideways and just play dime. It'll be pretty much free for the rest of the game. That's really powerful, and you want to definitely be keeping track of your opponent's hideaways when you're playing against red blue.
Yeah, you usually see four Tamatoas in these lists, so very interesting again to see you going down to two. But I'm glad that it worked out for you. After the characters, we get into the actions, and here you're playing two visions of the future. Why two compared to four? Because someone like myself, I'm a huge fan of this card, and I think this card is just insane. Being able to find your pieces when you want to.
Well, I think there's just not very much room for um, like adding cards that aren't really cards in blue steel.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't really have an effect on its own. It's just you use it to find a card that has an effect that you like. And so I'm running on 61 cards, and I've most of the time I found that 2 is enough in order to find like um, either it or a wheel, and I just use it to keep in my opening hand when I'm mulliganing blind,
Mm-hmm.
so I can set up my singer, and then I don't have to worry about getting Ursula discarded. So I can just set up my singer and then play visions, and then find the wheel right away to sing it. So that's the main use case is finding wheels. If I miss one or if I wheel the first time and then don't find the second one, then that's really nice. But I don't think that I would go over to just in this list
Mm-hmm.
in particular. I understand that like other lists, it's a very good card, it's very strong, but there's just not much room, and I don't think I would be okay with cutting any other cards. So yeah,
Yeah, that's the problem. Blue Steel. So many good cards, but not enough room.
yeah.
After Visions, other than the four whole new worlds, that's your other action. Again, being a whole new world deck, pretty standard. You're playing four new worlds. I want to talk about your removal, since those are the last cards as far as action goes. You're playing three Twin Fire, one Let It Go, and two Grab Your Sword. I think Let It Go a very strong card again to answer Maui Sharks and pretty much answer anything in the meta. Grab Your Sword, just a staple that's always been in the deck. But what's interesting is the Twin Fire. Most Blue Steel lists right now are on Fire the Cannons. Me personally, I'm on 3 Fire the Cannons, but you're choosing to go 3 Twin Fire. Why Twin Fire? Was it because you're relying on just being able to have that Tinkerbell and like one grab your swords? Did you never find it to where like you wish you had Fire the Cannons and on some spots turn one on the draw?
So yeah, so most of the time I would prefer to play Simba on one on the draw, or even on the play sometimes. So because it's just a body on the board, and I've been learning a lot that against aggressive decks, sometimes you only have a few turns in order to play bodies and affect the board. So I want to just get as many bodies down as possible. And Twin Fire, it is insane on the draw. I think it's what you really need in a card that gives you leverage to win on the draw. It just creates so much pressure on your opponent if you're able to shoot both their 1 and their 2 drop. And a lot of the decks are running X2s now because of the like lack of swords in the meta. So Twin Fire is able to punish some decks super hard, like Merfolk Bonsai or Chernbog Flynn or like Cindy Starts. It's all really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, or like Cindy Lilo is a pretty common opener sometimes. They miss like a Smee. So it's just a solid card, and also the discard effect is not really bad if you're running Whole New World. Your goal is to dump your hand and utilize every single card in your hand before you wheel, anyways. So it kind of the discard is free if you think about it. If you're able to keep spamming wheels, so it's kind of like a mini swords in my opinion. So you can use it to pair with grab your swords in order to take out the 4 health creatures that are like Genie or Sisu. But it's just a really, really strong card on the draw and helps you get that percentage points that you need. Especially when it's already so hard to win on the draw sometimes.
Yeah, I think that card is very strong and interesting. It's basically like a mini swords. You get to play less swords and get to play Twin Fire, and I really do like that combo. Very interesting for you to explain why you chose that over Fire the Cannons. And then everything else in the list looks pretty standard, except for one thing that looks very crazy to me. I think you've broken a law when it comes to the Hiram laws. You're playing 7 items outside of Quill and Lucky Dime. Why would you ever drop an item, LamChopss? What made you go
Um,
for 7 items?
it's kind of the same reason as for Visions. I think that um, most of the time, like when we're deck building blue steel, we just are trying to fit all these cards that we need in order to answer every single matchup. And it's just hard to keep these cantrips sometimes because they don't really
Do
do
much.
much. Obviously, they increase the consistency of the deck, but again, um, this meta is super fast, and I've realized that a lot of the times I'm not even playing Popsicle on 1 anymore.
Yeah.
Um, it might be a shocker to some people, but I believe truly like if you have Simba in your deck or if you have any other 1 drop in your deck, I think keeping Popsicle in the mole is almost a mistake in most cases. So the Simba kind of acts as like a Popsicle in a way. It like filters one, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't draw you a card or replace itself. But yeah, so having a Popsicle on 1 doesn't affect the board. It doesn't. It's not able to challenge. It's not able to lure. And a lot of the times, Flaversham is just way too slow. If you're playing him on turn 4, um, after you ramp, you are probably in a little bit of trouble because your opponents will just be questing for a billion, and Flaversham doesn't do a great job at challenging. So most of the time, I would just opt for a really control based early game. I just want to play as many bodies to the board as possible, and then when I gas out, then I'll play my Popsicle and my Flaversham together. So I'm not really too worried about finding a Popsicle in my opening hand now. I would rather have a Simba in almost every other case. So yeah, like I just need to find one of my Popsicles before like turn 5 or 6 when I run out of cards in hand. I want to play Flaversham.
Yeah, you opted out just to, and like I can't wait really to try this. I tried it back then, but I might need to try it again just to add an extra spot in my deck. But I really do like that. What's strong about this deck is that Simba. I think is what's holding everything together, being able to contest the early board, and it kind of makes sense for you to drop it because now you have 11 1 drop plays, and to me, like it just makes perfect sense, especially now that you explained it. Now that's pretty much sums up the deck list, but I only have 2 questions for you before we move on and talk about your matchups. Is
Sure.
what made you not want to play Calhoun? Was it just because it was uninkable? Because I love Calhoun. And did you ever consider playing No New World? Because people, again, like myself, Bad Vegas, Sky, who went to Continentals, we were on No New World.
Yeah, so I love Calhoun too. I think that I would run her if I had room, like unequal wise. But I much prefer like having a consistent deck that
Mm-hmm.
feels really smooth, rather than having a like unequal card.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since Twin Fire is a pretty good turn 2 play,
Yeah,
and it's
very
also
common.
unequal. So if keeping like Calhoun in your mulligan and sometimes keeping Twin Fire in your mulligan, um, like Twin Fire is only situationally good, so you don't always want to play on two. And so if you're keeping another unequal in your hand, like it's a little bit scary. It gets scary. So yeah, I would if I could, but sadly I can't. And about no wheel lists,
Yes.
I've always wanted to try to learn how to play no wheel list. I think almost everyone at Continentals, I think there are like six blue steel at Continentals. I think everyone is running no wheel except for me and maybe Troll House.
Hmm.
But I just haven't had the time to really learn another deck proficiently, so I kind of just stick to what I know best most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it clearly again it's worked for you. You stuck with no, you stuck. Sorry, you stuck with New World for this whole DLC season, and you've gotten all these tops with it. So I mean, it just makes sense for your last try that you opted to go for it, and you got rewarded. You got to finish in a fourth place. Unfortunately, losing into that semifinals match, which wasn't streamed, which sucks because I was hoping they'd stream it or at least show it. So bad parts on them because that would have been an intense match to watch. But I'm gonna have here on the screen and on the description your day one matches and your day two matches. Is there anything that you want to talk about from your day one or day two matches before we get into what happened in the semifinals? Since we weren't able to see it on stream.
Yeah, so my day one, I started off 2-0. I 2-0'd a red blue, and then I 2-0'd a, um, I think it was a amber steel.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a diggy hole. Yeah, I 2-0'd a red blue and a diggy hole, and then I was like feeling really good. I was like, maybe this would be easy day two,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, I went 2-2-1, and I was like, oh no,
Uh oh.
I might be dead here. I was like, I just came to Australia. My girlfriend didn't want me to come. Maybe I should have listened to her. But I was just like kind of stressed. I was like getting a little bit tilted. I rarely get tilted when I play. But I was feeling a little bit tired. Maybe it was like
That's normal. It
the
happens.
long like 30-hour flight too. But yeah, so I was getting a little bit down, but then after that, I was able to turn it around, and I got three 2-0s in a row, and then I ID'd my last round.
That's
Or
crazy.
was it three? Yeah, 5-5-2-2. I ended 5-2 on the day, which put me like somewhere after like 30 on the bottom 30s. So um, I was able to go to day two, but I was starting on the draw for most of my games. So I in my top cut, I was on the draw against Red Purple. I 2'd them, and then I was on the draw against Steel Song, and then I went 2-1. Those games were crazy. It was like one of the most fun games I've ever had in my life. Like my opponent, he went super wide. He had like it was a Daisy, a Ursula, a Gaston, a Pete, a Rapunzel, and he just played a second Pete.
That's crazy.
And my only character on board was Tinkerbell. His Daisy quested, he went to like he quested his whole board. He went to like 13, 14-ish range. And then I was like, oh no, like he has lethal and he just played a Pete. The Daisy gave me a Tinkerbell off the top. And then my top deck for the next turn was a second Tinkerbell. And I had enough ink to exactly go to 8 ink and then shift ink and then wipe his whole board.
That's
And that
crazy.
was able to like get me back in the game. And I think I ended up stopping him at 19 for 3 turns in a row after that. But
That's crazy.
yeah, so that was a really fun game. And I played in my next round in top 16. I played a red blue player. They're really good. I think they're really famous in One Piece.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't know how to play against Blue Steel because he was new to Lorcana, and I was able to 2 that. That was the one time I got to go on the play. And then my next round in the top 8, I played against another red blue on the draw, and then I was able to 2-1 them.
That's crazy.
Both games I went both games I won, I was at 5 lore, and I did like aerial dime
Mm-hmm.
220. So that was really cool. But I lost in the semifinals
Yeah.
to someone who would not be named.
Yeah,
But
someone who will not be named, someone who does not get any respect around here. But unfortunately, it wasn't streamed, and like you had just beaten like Red Blue. Just like what happened in that matchup? I know he was running Fishbone Quill. Was that a factor, or is it just because this person just knew how to play against Blue Steel? Because I mean, I was definitely rooting for you, and I just really wanted you to take it all the way.
yeah. Well, so I will say from my experience from playing against him, he seemed like a solid player.
Hmm.
I think he's obviously a very good player, but um, that's not always the most important thing. I guess his deck list ran Quills, and it's a really hard matchup for Blue Steel if they're running Quills, and so it was very scary to wheel, and he was able to just destroy me both games. It wasn't even close. Um, yeah, during the tournament, I think, yeah,
Yeah, it's a hard matchup. It's a hard matchup for
yeah.
sure. Like regardless of what version of Blue Steel that you're playing, just being able, especially with Quill, because like a lot of red blue players dropped Quill. So for him being able to catch up with your ink, like you just weren't. I'm assuming you just weren't able to out resource him, because you can't even answer the Hiram efficiently as well. And I'm assuming the Pyros it just is not that good in that matchup. So it's unfortunate that that you did lose, but I mean, again, I commend you for traveling all the way over there, chasing your dream, getting literally just one step away from the finish line. You were able to walk away with your second golden Mickey, and like honestly, to me, if I was just on the outside, the way I see it is like your next tournament that you're going to, you're just gonna dominate and do well. Just because again, you've shown your track record shows just how consistent you are with the deck. This is the first time where I'm assuming you're gonna be able to speak on it. So I just want to get your thoughts if you want to speak on it. But unfortunately, you did lose to someone who I guess you could say didn't deserve to be there, and that probably could have changed the whole outcome of the tournament. If you just want to share anything or your thoughts on the scandal situation that happened with the player who ended up getting your world's invite, and then now, as you can see here on the screen, he's not even on the list anymore to get his invite. Just if you want to speak on that.
Uh, I mean, I guess it wasn't really my world's invite. It was like up to me or Jesse. So I respect I respect all the other players, and I don't want to like say I assume that I would have won.
For sure.
But it was a really I guess it definitely affected me what happened in the unfortunate like the top eight match. And I'm not one to complain, and I think that um I've been trying to stay positive and happy about it, but um sometimes I do think about it, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm glad that Ravensburger stepped in and made a good decision for the community. And I'm really happy that Jesse got his Mickey. That was like the thing I was most excited about.
Uh,
I reached out to him, and I was like I felt so bad about that. And I was like, well, if Ravensburger doesn't do anything, then I might take it on myself to
Start a
make it right
riot.
and give him my Mickey. And give him my Mickey because I believe like he deserved one. I didn't. It made me sad to think that
That even
he
happened.
was seeing everyone else winning, and that even the thought of like, oh, that should have been me. Like I understand like that's a sad feeling for that would have been a sad feeling for him. But thankfully Ravensburger rectified the situation, and I think it was a big W for the community.
Yes, and I agree with you. Like even if that didn't happen, who knows what would have happened in your game? And Nick, you were right about that. But it just sucks that it happened. Not only was Jesse affected, you were affected. Multiple people were affected, and I'm glad that they also gave Jesse his Mickey. But just for anyone who's watching, we still need to encourage Ravensburger to release a judge program or something like that because we just need to avoid situations like this. But it feels really good to see someone like yourself who was affected in that situation have that positive mentality because again it sucks, right? But I like what you said, and I think it's a really good way to view things. And for your next tournament that you go to, I have no doubt in my mind that you'll be able to get your invite next year if they don't do a last chance world qualifier, which I'm hoping they do. They're crazy, but I'm hoping for it. But you got your second Mickey. Now after the tournament, how do you feel? What's next for LamChopss? Again, I'm gonna have here on the screen right now. Your Metafy page is live. What's next for LamChopss? What are you gonna be doing until then?
So I'm pretty tired from traveling around like 2 weekends in a row. One to Australia and then one to the SSG 10K.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty beat, but I'm super excited for set seven. Hopefully they give us some good cards. I'm not sure how I feel about this chicken card. Um,
I'm
but
pretty
yeah,
sure
for
it's not
set
even
seven,
gonna
I'm
happen
really
anyway.
excited. I'm just excited to start deck building and start competing in the new events with a new meta, fresh deck, and I'm planning on going to the Japanese Grand Prix events.
Oh,
That will be in May and June.
what?
Um, so I plan to be there, but I heard that it's like a lottery to get the tickets to go in.
Okay.
So I don't think it'll be guaranteed, but I am planning on it. So that's what's next for me. I'm just gonna focus on school and hopefully finish the semester and then celebrate with some Lorcana.
Oh
Yeah.
my, Japan, LamChopss in Japan. That's gonna be something. If you're gonna go, man, I think I'm gonna have to go because I didn't think people were actually gonna travel all the way over there to
No,
Japan.
I ain't
So,
gonna do it. I'm gonna do
all
it.
right, I might
Yeah.
have to hop on there with you, man. That's crazy, and that's just crazy how. Well, it's not crazy because again, you've shown how consistent you are with your results, and I wouldn't pass. Like it wouldn't. Again, like if you were to go to these events, I mean, I wouldn't even trip on that because I know that you'll do good and the results that you put in. I do want to thank you for coming out on the channel. I appreciate you having the time, telling your story, telling your experience, talking about the deck. I am going to have all of Jonathan's social links and his Metafy page in the description. Do you have any closing thoughts or shout outs that you want to give before we end this video?
Yeah. So well, thank you to you, of course, for having me on here again. It's always nice to talk to a friend.
Thank you.
And I wanted to shout out my girlfriend who went through all 8 rounds at CSCS 10K. It was like her first big tournament that she actually stayed in and played the
Ooh,
whole thing. And she went 5-3, which is I think really good.
that is really good.
She started off like she started off 0-2 and then she went 4-2, I think, and then she played Zan and
Oh,
she lost. But I'm really proud of her. I think she did great. Shout out to my locals in the Northern Virginia region. Um, Sadly, I haven't been able to come out that much because I've been traveling a lot, but I hope to see everyone soon. And I'm always thankful for everyone's support. It really means the world to me, and I'm so grateful for everyone who is following my journey in Australia and at the 10K. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys.
yeah, shout out to the 20 Lore Pro Discord Sapphire and Steel thread because these guys were cheering on for you in
They got to
Australia.
see Pleakley for the
Yes,
first time.
you
Yeah.
are the Pleaky King. You're a two times Golden Mickey winner. Again, congrats to you and good luck to your future stuff. I can't wait to have you on the channel again. And if for those of you who haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Definitely means a lot. Go ahead and leave a comment and let me know what you think of Jonathan's deck list or if you have any questions for him. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to respond in the comments. But again, thank you for coming on to the channel. Can't wait for you to be back here next time. And yeah, that's it for the video, guys. Peace out. Thank you.